Thank you for joining us for the Japan Foundation Touring Film Program's Associate Talk, What Lies Beneath the Intricate Representation of a Dark Mind in Japanese Cinema. My sincere apologies for this late start that we just we are doing rehearsal, we completely oblivious, what time it was. So just my sincere apology. But now we are going to start. My name is Junko Takekawa, Senior Arts Program Officer of the Japan Foundation London, and then I'm responsible for the programming contents. After 2 years ending that period, enduring period of COVID-19, which focused on us to alter our way of living, we have finally come to the stage where we can return to bigger screens to enjoy films and to show some of the finest Japanese films as part of the Japan Foundation Touring Film Program in the way that films were originally expected and appreciated. However, not everything is back to normal. Having guests in person on UK soil from Japan is still difficult. So we, first of all, asked 16 directors to record their message so audience at cinema could virtually meet them. However, we didn't stop there. We decided to organize a few online talks with filmmakers and professionals from Japan and the UK. Today's online talk is the finest of the 3 such online talks events. So you still meet them virtually, but live this time, and then you can ask your questions live. I am therefore delighted to welcome Wajima Kotaro, the film director of the Lone Ume Tree, as well as James Moore, a columnist of The Independent. The Lone Ume Tree is one of my favorite films among those 20 titles I have chosen. There aren't many occasions where I hold a strong and instant desire after watching screeners that I definitely want to show it to the UK audiences, but this was exactly one of them. This feature film is a rare gem which explores the life of intellectually disabled people, particularly with autism, and their care as well as in reaction of the community where they are supposed to belong. Every country and society has a different degree of awareness of autism and the ways of responding to their needs. Japan may be lagging behind the UK on these matters, and the film represents the situation in Japan, which may differ from that here. However, I feel that what Director Wajima achieves is very worthwhile, not only for raising awareness, but also creating a platform for discussion, like today. I'm very grateful to him for joining today's talk. Also, thanks goes to James Moore. Strictly speaking, he's not a film person, but today he's joining us in the capacity of a person who has a family member with autism. He strongly believes that more advocacy is required through whatever media are available, and together I am sure that they can have an interesting conversation. Thank you, James. This event is made possible with assistance from Happiness Phantom Studio, the distributor of the Lone Ume Tree, in particular, Ms. Nomura Yoshiko. Thank you, Nomura-san. Next, housekeeping matters. Today's event will be recorded as we are using a webinar function. Your names will not be viewable by other attendees. However, I strongly believe I strongly sort of recommend that you just video and then the sound mute and then not showing your face. If you have any question for the panelists, please use the Q&A function to send in your question at any time. Remember that attendees' question may be seen by everybody else, so that you can avoid a particular question pressed by another person which you would like to answer, or if it is the same as yours. Simply click the thumb up icon next to the question you wish to vote. Unfortunately, due to time restrictions, we may not be able to pick up all of the questions, so my apologies in advance. Lastly, as always, we will send you online questionnaire, so please spare a short moment to complete it for our future event. That's all from me. So now I'd like to invite Director Wajima and James Moore to start conversation. Wajima-san is translated by our favorite translator, Bethan Jones. お願いします。Over to you. Thank you.
Hello, my name's James Moore. I'm a columnist for The Independent. As Junko said, my son has autism, so this is obviously a subject of passionate interest to me. I'm delighted to have been invited here by the Japan Foundation to talk to Wajima-san, the director of the Lone Ume Tree. Hello, Wajima-san.
こんにちは。今日よろしくお願いします。梅キラのバカの監督の和島です。海外の方に映画を見ていただいて、その反応を、直接伺うのは初めてのことですので、とても楽しみにしていましたし、少し緊張もしています。今日はよろしくお願いします。
Hello, my name is Wajima Kotaro. I'm the director of the Lone Ume Tree. This is the first opportunity I've had to talk to an overseas audience who've had the chance to see my film. And so I've been really looking forward to this opportunity. I'm a little bit nervous as well, but thank you all for joining this event today.
So just as a reminder, or for those who might not have seen the film yet, we'll just run through the trailer and then we'll go straight to questions.
お隣さん。
うちには関係ないでしょ。
6時45分です。
おはよう。
おはよう。7時3分です。
次の腰。
7時10分です。7時10分です。
いただきます。
いただきます。
次の方。
肝っ玉母さんの玉子さんは
離婚の相談でしょ。後悔のオーラをまとってるわ。
隣に引っ越してきた里村です。
ちょっとちょこちょいで自閉症の息子忠さんは散歩と馬が大好き。
怖かったね。
こらどうしました。
勝手に入ってきたぞ。
ごめんなさい。ぎっくり腰。このまま共倒れになっちゃうのかね。お願いいたします。
忠さん、みんなと一緒にいただきましょうか。
7時です。7時です。
ずっと2人で暮らしてきたから変な感じ。忠さんの父親が植えたんだよ。
ご主人は？
うちじゃ死んだことになってるから。無駄な枝が伸びるといい花や実がつかなくなるだろ。埋め切らぬバカっていうのよ。すっぱ
梅の木が見つめる親子の絆。このありふれた毎日が人生の宝物。
忠さんがいてくれて母ちゃん幸せだよ。
埋め切らぬバカ。
So I think, first of all, Wajima-san, could you tell us a little bit about the film and what you are hoping to achieve with it? This is not a subject we've seen a lot of in Western film or Japanese cinema, of which I'm a big fan. So if you could tell us a little bit about why you took this subject on and why you chose this format.
はい、この「めきらぬバカ」という映画は、自閉症のある、息子とその母親が、地域との共生を模索していく物語です。もともと私は、ドキュメンタリー映画に編集者として携わっていた経験があります。その時に、そのドキュメンタリー映画の内容というのが、親御さんが亡くなった後に、親御さんが残した家で一人暮らしをする自閉症の方の日常を記録した映画でした。ただ、その近隣住民との、その関係というものが、その自閉症を原因とするさまざまな言動によってとても深刻な状態になっていて、そのドキュメンタリー映画の中では組み込むことができなかったんですね。それを劇映画という形であれば表現できるのではないかと思い、まさかの脚本を書きました。
Well, this film, The Lone Ume Tree, is about an autistic son and his mother, and the way they try to find their way through the relationships they have with their community. I previously worked as an editor on a documentary, which was about someone with autism who had been cared for by their parents. Their parents had died, and it looked at their daily life. And also at the relationship they had with the community, which had been affected negatively by some of their actions. But I wasn't able to go into the depth that I wanted about that relationship in the documentary. And so I thought that maybe in a feature film, I would be able to go into a bit more depth.
How much research did you do prior to making the film? And how much did you involve people from the neurodiverse or the autistic community in the making of it? Because obviously this is a very sensitive subject to them. I know my son, who is autistic himself, is very aware of how autistic people are portrayed and how it's sometimes very negative, and this bothers him quite a lot. So could you talk about that?
はい、この映画のリサーチは、プロットを書き始めた頃に、本格的に始めました。そして撮影が始まる前日まで、リサーチをしていたので、約1年ほど、リサーチをしています。で、
I started researching before I wrote the plot for this movie, and I continued right the way up to the day before I started filming. So I was researching for a year.
そして、主に自閉症の方の親御さんや、障害福祉の支援者、そしてソーシャルワーカーにお会いして、自閉症の方の日常や近隣住民との関係、またそのグループホームを建設する際に浮上するさまざまな問題についてのお話を伺いました。
I looked into, I researched relationships between children or adults with autism and their parents. I spoke with social workers, with welfare workers. I looked at their daily lives and the relationships they had with the community and those around them, and also at some of the problems that arise when trying to build a group home.
その映画を作ったその結果としては、自閉症のある方の親御さんからは好意的に受け止められたと感じています。本作では全ての問題がきれいに解決するわけではないんですけれども、同じような日常を生きる方からは、その親の思いを素直に肯定していただいた安心感を得たというメッセージをいただきました。逆にその一方で、障害福祉の支援の仕事をされている方々からは、その自分だったらもっと近隣住民を説得するのにという不満の声が届きました。おそらく福祉が地域に敗北したような後味の悪さが残ったのかもしれません。それが今回の映画の私の課題です。
すいません、最後。
はい、はい。障害福祉、はい。障害福祉の支援の仕事をされている方からは、その自分だったらその近隣住民を説得するのにという不満の声が届きました。これがおそらく福祉が地域に敗北したようなその後味の悪さとして残ったのかもしれません。これが私の課題です。
I think the reaction of the parents and children that I spoke to with autism to the film was positive. Not all the problems that we see in the film are resolved, but I think overall there was a sense of relief. With regards to the people working in welfare and working in social services that I'd spoken to, they seemed to, some of them said that they would have done a better job of convincing the community and getting the community on side. I think they felt a bit defeated, and that's maybe something that I need to think about.
I actually think your portrayal was very good. Certainly from the perspective of someone living in a Western context, you didn't seek to paper over any of the difficulties. So I thought that was a praiseworthy aspect of the film. How did you go about casting it, and did you consider using any neurodiverse actors in any of the roles?
はい、ありがとうございます。そのニューロダイバーシティの役者の方を、起用するということは、当事者の方を起用するということは、考えませんでした。はい。
I didn't consider using neurodiverse actors, no.
理由は、本作では、障害者福祉施設に対する反対運動の場面があります。また、
And the reason for that was because of the protests that we see in the film against the group home.
また、その最中にグループホームの利用者に責められた中さんが、パニックを起こします。その他にも、梅の木が切られそうになった時には、我が事のように痛みを感じてパニックを起こします。
And then when Chusan is thrown out of the group home because of the reaction of the residents there and has a panic attack. Also, when the Ume tree is being cut and he feels that pain as though it's his own pain, and again has that panic reaction.
このような演技を、中さんと同じような自閉症の方に求めるということは、私にはできませんでした。当事者にとってあまりにも負担が大きいと感じたからです。
And I didn't want to ask somebody who has autism the same way as Chusan does to go through that, and to have to act that. I thought it would be too much of a burden for them.
Do you think that the main focus of the film is Chusan, or the mother, or the community, or all of those? Are they all part of a bigger whole? Who is the main focus of the film, do you think?
主人公は、母親です。
The protagonist is the mother.
そして、その母親と、隣人との関係が、その少しでもいい方向に改善していく様を、そのプロセスを丁寧に描くということを大切にしました。
I've tried to show the process of improving her relationship with her neighbors, albeit ever so slightly.
I mean, it's very rare to see films based on an original story like the Lone Ume Tree, and for a film to be based on an original story about this subject is even more rare. How did you go about convincing producers and other people to get behind the film and to allow you to make it in line with your vision?
はい。まずこの映画は、日本の文化庁の若手映画作家育成プロジェクトの一環で制作された映画です。
Well, firstly, this film was made through the Japanese Cultural Agency's program for encouraging young directors.
そこは比較的、その商業性よりも作家性を育成することに重点を置いたプロジェクトでした。
And it was a project that valued the artistic quality of a film over its commercial viability.
そこにその先ほどお話ししたように自分がドキュメンタリー映画で、感じたことを、その企画書の中に盛り込み、企画を応募しました。それが最終選考に残り、映画を撮影することができました。
And as I said, I took those things that I'd felt when I was making that documentary, put them into my proposal, and it got through to the last round, and I ended up getting to make it.
That must have been quite a moment for you when you knew you were going to be able to make this film. You must have been elated.
一言でとても嬉しかったです。そして自分自身が長編の映画を撮るのはとても久しぶりだったので、その不安も同時にありました。
I was delighted, in a word. Although I hadn't worked on a feature film for a long time, so I was also a little bit nervous.
Do you think you will use you will return to this subject in your future filmmaking, and do you think you will try and fit more autistic characters in? Again, I know from my own experience with my son, he never gets to see himself on film, and I know he'd very much like to. His autism is quite different to Chusan's, but he never gets to see himself on film, and I think that's a shame. So I wonder if you will feature future autistic characters.
はい、これからも、この映画で扱ったようなテーマを別の視点から、例えば、ソーシャルワーカーや障害福祉の支援者の立場からも描いてみたいなという思いがあります。その時に、本作では登場しなかったようなタイプの自閉症の方も登場するのではないかなと思っています。
I would like to take up this theme, this topic again, and maybe look at it from different viewpoints. So from the viewpoint of a social worker or of a disability support worker, and in doing that, I would like to feature different types of autism, as you say.
How wide a release has it had in Japan? How have you been pleased with its reception in Japan?
日本では、昨年の11月に、この映画が公開されまして、ありがたいことに今も上映が続いています。本当に当初予想していたよりももう何倍も多くの映画館で上映されていて、制作者たちも本当に皆さん驚いています。
The film was released in November last year in Japan, and I'm very grateful for the fact that it's still in cinemas. It's actually in many more screens than we initially anticipated, and everyone involved is surprised.
Do you think this will be the springboards for more films like this, for more films featuring people with disabilities? I know, I mean, myself, I've got a mobility impairment because of a road accident, and it's a frustration of mine that representation is minimal. So do you think this will be a catalyst for greater representation in Japanese cinema?
そうですね、この映画のおかげで増えるかどうかっていうことは断言はできないんですけれども、私も病や障害の抱えた人の日常が描かれている映画というのはもっと見たいと思っています。
I don't know if that kind of representation will increase as a result of my film, but I would definitely like to see more films featuring people with disabilities and people with illnesses.
私自身も転換という病を抱えていて、日本では転換に対する偏見や差別が今も残っています。同じような患者さんにいろんなお話を聞いて、それをラジオを通して伝えるという活動を続けています。そういった人たちから学んできたことを何らかの形で自分の映画の中でこれからも反映し続けていきたいなというふうに考えています。
I actually have epilepsy, and there is still a lot of prejudice and bias against people with epilepsy in Japan. I have been involved in running a radio program where I talk to people with epilepsy and to spread their thoughts, their feelings, and that's definitely something I would like to continue to learn from and to share what I've learned through my future films.
You could have made the tone of the film, I guess, more serious, but you've actually made it that it's quite charming, dramatic. There are even humorous parts of it. What how did you set the tone of the film, and why did you set the tone of the film like this? And how would you like the film to be perceived and remembered by audiences in future?
はい。それは、おそらく私が出会ってきた自閉症の方や、そのご家族の方々が、チャーミングだったからだと思います。そして、その日常がとても生き生きしているように、豊かに私には見えました。それがおそらくこの映画のタッチにとても反映しているのではないかなと思っています。
I think the tone of the film comes from the fact that all of the people that I met with autism and their families were charming, and that their daily lives were cheerful. And I think that's what I've reflected in the tone of the film.
One of our audiences said it would be great to have a film from the perspective of an autistic or disabled person with them as a protagonist. Is that something you'd like to look at doing?
はい、これからも作りたいと思っています。次は公害とその地域についての映画を作りたいと考えています。公害と、その公害を生んだ地域についての映画を作りたいと思っています。
That is something that I would like to do in my future films. Yes. So the idea of the person and their surroundings in the community.
To me, the film shows that the neurotypical world really wouldn't have to move very far to be a little bit more accommodating to autistic people, and to be a little bit more accommodating to people with disability in general, just with a little bit of thought and a little bit less prejudice. Do you think that's the case? And was one of your aims to show that it wouldn't take that much for the world to be made a little bit more tolerable for those of us with disabilities, and for autistic people in particular?
はい、全くその通りです。そして、ほんの小さな変化を描くということが、映画にできる精一杯のことではないかなというふうにも思いました。だからやっぱり劇的な変化であったり、ハッピーエンドとか、そういうことには、そういうふうな映画にはしたくないなという思いで、この映画を作りました。
That's exactly what I was trying to do, and I want to make sure that my film shows those small changes that happen. I'm trying to avoid it being a big dramatic or happy ending. I want to show the small changes.
I think if you'll forgive me a spoiler for those who haven't seen the film, one of the most striking scenes in it for me was almost the very last frame, where I wasn't sure that the lady running the horse, the stable, had yet got on board with the group home, with the people living within it. And I like that scene because I think it showed the reality. Was that your intention with that scene?
ありがとうございます。確かに彼女はまだ障害者のことも障害者施設のことも完全には受け入れていないと思います。しかし、おそらく全く変わっていないわけではなくて、障害者に対する自分の偏見があることに気づき、自分の言動を疑い始めてるんじゃないかなと、そういうふうに見えたらいいなという思いでシーンを撮りました。
Well, thanks for saying that, because she hasn't accepted the people, and she hasn't accepted the facility that they live in. But that's not to say that she hasn't changed at all. I wanted to show that she has realized that she has this prejudice towards them and that she started to doubt her own behavior.
And I'll take another question from the question box. When making the film, did you see or read any other depictions of autism, such as with the Light by Keiko Tobe or the A Word, a UK-based TV program? Had you looked at any other depictions of autism in popular culture? And as we know, there aren't that many of them, but be interested to hear whether you had seen any.
はい、自閉症の方が書いた本であったり、親御さんが書いた本をまず読んだりしました。他には、例えば映画では、アジアの、自閉症を扱った映画を何本か見ました。韓国のマラソンという映画と、中国の海洋天堂という映画を見ました。
First, I started by reading books written by people with autism and their families. And I also watched a few Asian films that featured people with autism, like the Korean film Marathon and a Chinese film as well.
What other directors were influences on your work? Which are directors you particularly like as fiction film directors?
ドキュメンタリー映画作家の佐藤誠さんは、私の大学の時の先生でもあり、私がとても尊敬している映画作家です。
Actually, a documentary director, Sato Makoto, was my teacher at university and is a director that I really respect.
In observing Japanese society, what do you think could be done to help people with autism better? I have some very, very strong views, which you'll see in my column, on what Western society and British society needs to do. But I'd be interested to hear, having gone through the process of making your film, what you think Japan needs to learn from this.
この映画の取材をしていく中で、一つ気になったことがあります。それは地域の人たちが障害者の施設に対する、その建設反対運動をする際に、子どもたちの安全を守らなくてはいけないという建前を作るということでした。
One thing I noticed making this film was that when local communities hold these protests and object to the building of facilities for people with disabilities, they use protecting children as an excuse.
しかし、その当の子どもが実際にその障害者の人たちに偏見を持って恐れているからというと、そうではないんだと思います。
But the children themselves, I don't think, are prejudiced against the people with disabilities, and I don't think they are afraid of them.
そういったこの子どもたちに対する、障害の教育というものをもっと充実させていくということはとても大切なことで、やっぱり彼らが理解を深めていくということが障害のある人たちがもう少し生きやすくなる社会に少しでも何ですかね、貢献してくれるんじゃないかなというふうに期待しています。
So I think it's very important to improve education, and that will deepen our understanding of people with disabilities, and it will contribute to making society an easier place for them to live.
To what extent have you heard of, this is from one of our attendees, to what extent have you heard of school or other groups attending the film to learn about autism, and would you like to see that? I know with the curious incident of The Dog in the Nighttime, which is a play about autism, which I took my son to see and which he really liked, that schools have sometimes been taken to see that. So have you heard of that sort of thing happening in Japan or anywhere else with this film?
はい、それは本当に私がとても望んでいることなんですけれども、まだ実現していません。 ただ、もしこれからそういった機会があれば、ぜひ全面的に協力したいなって思っています。
That's something I would love to see happening, but haven't seen it yet. If there is an opportunity like that, I would be 100% in favor.
Would you be interested in giving talks, for example? Would you like to, is that something you'd like to do? Because I think that'd be absolutely invaluable. And I think it'd be an amazing experience for a schools to have the director to actually speak to them about the process of making this film before seeing that. I think that'd be an amazing thing.
はい、非常に興味があります。その子どもたちがその映画を通して感じたことを本当に直接聞かせていただきたいと思っています。またそれによって自分自身がこうハッとさせられるというか、自分自身に偏見に気づかされるということもあると思うんです。子どもの意見というのはそのくらい鋭くて力のあるものだと思っています。
That's definitely something I would be interested in doing. I would love the opportunity to hear from children directly what they thought of the film. And I think I might find myself surprised as well. I'm sure that children are so astute and their words are so powerful that I'm sure that they would be able to draw my attention to some of my own prejudices that I haven't even noticed.
It does seem as if prejudice is not something which is natural with children. It's something which is learned as we grow older. And I do think we have to work hard. Everyone has to work hard at that. I think you're right there. I've got a question from Jeremy Clark. When doing your research for the film, were there particular stories, incidents, or people you came across who you incorporated into the script, or for that matter into the performances of the cast playing the son or the mother or the people who react to them in the film? And I'd be really interested, as well as Jeremy, in hearing whether you've got any examples that you could refer to.
本当に取材の中で聞いた言葉というものが、前編に散りばめられています。中でも印象的でとても大切なのは母親の息子に対する感謝の気持ちがありがとうという言葉で大事な場面で使われているんですけれども、これは私がその撮影の前日に取材をさせていただいたお母様の意見でした。
The words of the people that I spoke to are there throughout the film. One particularly important example is the feeling of gratitude, where the mother expresses gratitude to her son. It's an important scene in the film, and that is something that a mother that I spoke to the day before we started filming said, and I used her words.
取材を通して一番感じたことは、その親御さんがその子供が生まれてきたことに対してとても感謝の思いを持っているということでした。子供に、障害のある子供にいろんなことを学んだと。そしてそのことにとても感謝している。なんかそれが日常的にありがとうという言葉で表現されているということに気づかされました。
I felt that one of the main things that I felt throughout my research was a sense of gratitude. Parents being grateful to their children, being thankful that they had given birth to this child, and being grateful for everything that their child and their disability had taught them. And they expressed that through their thanks every day.
I think you're right. I mean, I just love the way my son just thinks about things differently from other people, and has insights which we just see things which we don't, and it's really it's a delight to us having him. But I've got a question from Jordan Scott, who says in the UK he thinks neurodiversity tends to be thought of of existing in children and teens, and perhaps people of older age groups with autism get pushed to one side or maybe don't get the attention they deserve. Is this similar or different in Japan, he asks?
いや、特に取材をしていて、自分がそういうふうに感じたことはあまりなかったんですけれども、はい。
I didn't really feel that actually when I was doing my research.
What do you think you would like to do next? I mean, what's your next project?
新潟水俣病という公害をご存知でしょうか。
Have you heard of the public pollution in Minamata in Niigata?
その公害の犠牲者と、その彼らが住んでいる地域、その人たちとの、すみません、ちょっと最初から言います。その、公害によって、ある地域の中で人々がこう分断されるという事件があったんですけれども、その人たちの日常を描きたいなというふうに思っています。
So the pollution has led to division between people in that community, and that's what I want to show in my next film. Is daily life in that community.
Will that be a documentary or will that be another fiction film?
これはその新潟水俣病のドキュメンタリー映画を作る若者たちの群像劇です。実在する映画なんです。はい。はい。新潟水俣病のドキュメンタリー映画があるんですけれども、これは実話です。この映画を作った若者たちの群像劇です。
So it's going to be an ensemble piece about the young people who actually made in real life a documentary about Minamata Byo in Niigata.
Another question from Jeremy Clark. Have you thought about turning the Lone Ume Tree or the subject of autism, parenting and community into a TV series? Obviously, with streaming, there are a lot of opportunities in TV at the moment. So have you thought about doing something in television at all?
ぼんやりと、もっといろんな人に見てもらえるテレビや、見やすい時間帯でこの作品を届けることができたらいいなとは思っていますが、具体的にその準備をしているという段階ではないですね。
I've had vague thoughts that it would be good for it to be on TV or somewhere where it's easier for more people to have access to it, but I haven't had anything specific.
Another question from our audience: how did you go about scoring the film? How did you go about selecting the music?
はい、音楽は石川春光さんという方に作っていただきました。
The music was by Ishikawa Harumi.
私が、お願いしたのは、その登場人物たちの感情とちょっと距離をとって静かに寄り添うような音楽を作ってくださいということでした。
And what I asked for in the music was music that stands at a distance from the emotions of the characters, but follows along with them.
そして必要以上にその登場人物たちの悲しみや怒りを煽ることがないようなそういう音楽を作ってくださいともお願いしました。
And I asked that the music not be the kind of music that would stir up unnecessarily sadness or feelings of anger.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I do feel that there is far too much, and again, this is a wider point about disabled people in film. There is far too much about suffering and far too little about just disabled people living their lives alongside other people. You don't often see a disabled person in film doing something which isn't related to their disability. So I'd very much like to see more of that. Do you think you could look at doing something like that in the future?
はい、ありがとうございます。それは先ほどお話しした、映画作家の佐藤誠さんの教えにも実は影響を受けているところなんですけれども、佐藤さんはどんな社会的なテーマを抱えている人も決して社会問題、社会的なテーマのために生きているのではないということを教えてくれました。
Thanks for those comments. I think that's something I've learned actually from the documentary director Sato Makoto, who I mentioned. He taught me that whatever the theme, social issue, social topic I'm depicting, the people in the film, the people in the documentary do not live for that topic. They don't live for that problem. That's not the center of their life.
そして彼らはとても平凡な日常を送っていて、その日常を、丁寧に、映し出していくことでしか本当の意味での問題っていうのは浮かび上がってこないということを教えてくれました。そういったことが私の脚本や演出や音楽に影響を与えているのかもしれないと思います。
He said that these people have their ordinary lives, and it's only by showing those ordinary lives that the problems will really come to the fore. And I think maybe that comes across in my script and my directing and my music choice.
How long did it take you to write this film? I mean, what was your process? What was your process of writing?
はい、この脚本、このシナリオ開発も、文化庁の若手映画作家育成プロジェクトの一環で、進んでいきました。
The development of the scenario was done as part of the Cultural Agency's Young Film Director Program.
日本のベテランの脚本家の、加藤正人さんの指導の下で、映画の構成や、取材の大切さを学び、プロットとシナリオを制作しました。約1年くらいかかっています。
The veteran Japanese scriptwriter Kato Masato helped me to come up with the structure, taught me about structure, taught me about the importance of research, and that helped me to put together the plot and the scenario. It took about a year.
Why the Ume Tree?
はい、ですね、私が先ほどお話ししたドキュメンタリー映画の話に戻りますが、実はその自閉症の男性の家には一本の桜の木がありました。
Well, it goes back to the documentary film that I mentioned I worked on. The man with autism that I was following in that film had a cherry tree in the garden.
しかしその桜の木がですね、その冬になると枯れ葉が隣の家に舞い切ってしまって、その苦情の原因になっていたんですね。なので、毎年その苦情の対策をするのが難しいということで、ある日その一本のその立派な桜の木を根元から切り落としてしまうということがありました。
And that cherry tree, every winter, its leaves would fall off the tree, and they would blow into next door's garden. And he would always get complaints every year about the leaves. And he got fed up of dealing with the complaints and decided to cut down this beautiful cherry tree.
そしてその時にその男性がその切られる桜の木を見て、とても悲しそうな顔をしていました。私が見た中で一番悲しい顔をしていました。
And as he watched the tree being cut down, he looked incredibly sad. It was the saddest I'd seen him look.
そして自分が映画を作るときには、その庭の木をこう切らなくても済むような、何かそういった映画を作りたいなと。そしてその木によって隣家との交流が少しずつ育まれていくような映画を作りたいなと思っていました。
And I wanted my film to have a tree, but that the tree wouldn't have to be cut down. And I wanted the tree to actually help improve the relationship that he had with his neighbors.
そしてそんな時に日本にその桜切るバカ、梅切らぬバカという、ことわざがあることを知りました。
And it was then that I learned that there's a saying in Japanese. It says, "The fool who cuts the cherry tree, the fool who doesn't cut the plum tree or the ume tree."
それはその木によって適切な処置をしないと、その木は花や実がつかないということを戒めるためのことわざです。
And it means that それが
この映画の現代になっています。
And it means that you have to know how to treat the trees or the people differently in order to get them to blossom. And that's in Japanese, the title is "The Fool Who Doesn't Cut the Plum Tree" or the Ume Tree. So that's what I use directly for the title.
Oscar would like to know, what is your favorite Japanese movie, and do you have a favorite Western movie?
はい、好きな映画は、その佐藤誠の「アガに生きる」。これが日本の映画で一番好きな映画です。西洋の映画は、ナニ・モレッティの息子の部屋という映画があるんですけれども、ソンズルームっていうタイトルの映画だと思い、イタリアの映画です。それが好きな映画です。はい、西洋の映画だとナニ・モレッティの息子の部屋という映画。
Sun's Room ですね。Sun's Room とおっしゃいました。はい。So Moretti's Sun's Room is my favorite Western film, and then my favorite Japanese film is Aga ni Ikiru by Sato Makoto.
Sato Makoto is a key influence of yours, I think. Has he been a mentor to you, if you like, in your career? How's that developed?
もう一度お願いします。私はその2006年に、佐藤さんのいた大学を卒業したんですけれども、残念ながらその2007年の9月に佐藤さんは亡くなっています。ですので、今は佐藤さんが残した本や映画を繰り返し読んだり見たりしています。そこから新しいことを学び続けています。
Well, I graduated from university where I was taught by Sato Makoto in 2006, and unfortunately in September of 2007 he passed away. So since then I've just been rereading his books and rewatching his films and continuing to learn new things from them.
So the last question here is, have you looked at the future? Have you thought about crowdfunding movies? And what do you think of about streaming
はい。クラウドファウンディングは、とても必要な手段の一つだと思っていますが、私はまだ実践する機会はありませんでした。はい。はい。
Crowdfunding, I think, is a very important, very necessary means of raising money. And although I haven't had an opportunity to try it yet.
そして配信については、この埋め切らぬバカというのは、もうすぐその配信を控えています。なかなかその当事者の方で、またそのご家族だったりが劇場に来られないという事情もありましたので、それを、今回の配信を機により多くの当事者の方々にこの映画を届けられたらいいなと思っています。
And in terms of streaming, the Lone Ume Tree is going to be streaming soon. A lot of the people who I spoke to in the course of my research and their families can't go to the cinema. And so this should hopefully open it up for a lot more people to be able to see it.
Delighted, absolutely delighted to hear this. I'd just like to say a couple of concluding remarks. I'm going to try this. This is purely picked up from my watching lots of Japanese cinema and anime. Arigatou gozaimasu, Wajima-san. Thank you very much for being here today. It's been a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. I hope to see more of your work in future, and I'd really like to see more of your work to be screened in the UK. I'd look forward to that a great deal. Thank you very much to the Japan Foundation for making this possible. It's been an invaluable experience for me as a parent of an autistic son. And I will now hand back to Junko for concluding remarks.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to include this fabulous film in the tutoring film program. I know that I don't know how many people have seen it as part of that tutoring program. Unfortunately, all of that screening as part of the tutoring program have been now over, but I hope that this fabulous film will be screened, not just in the UK. Now I know that it's still screened in Japan, but also all over the world, so that many people, can enjoy and learn from this film. I think that one of the good things about this film is that I'm very glad, to be honest with you, to say that it wasn't documentary. It was feature film. So that it's quite accessible. I know that some people may not agree with me, but I totally enjoyed. And then totally my emotion was into the mother's emotion, other people's emotion. It was so relatable to me. And then given that, I have several sort of mothers, friends, who's got, autistic children, to different degree, that it wasn't somebody else's story for me. And then I know in Japan that long time ago, it was a mother who was criticized for the behavior of children. And then I was really gutted and sorry for them. So, I'm so glad to see the mothers, Jusun's mothers, that strength and powerful, and also that forward-looking. Yet there was kind of course, difficulty in having that child and the care, even when she is so old herself. So I think this is something that we need to keep talking. And then, like James said, there's a lot of family with autism, and then I think the film can be very powerful too, to let people know what's happening in real time in the contemporary. So thank you so much for all of you who spared your time and then joining us and watching this. And then, of course, above all, I want to thank James Moore and then Wajima-san. I'm very glad to have you today because I myself wanted to ask so many questions, which actually James already did. And it's so glad to hear a lot of thoughts behind the making. And thank you so much for sparing time. And also thanks go to Bethan, who did that wonderful translation. So lastly, I would like to announce that another talk event, Eddie, yes. Yeah, we will have another talk event on Friday. Friday on the same time. I'm so sorry. I should have actually start this session at 12:30 in the UK time, 9:30 in Japan time. I can only sort of apologize for that slight delay. But we make sure it starts from 12:30 on Friday. We invited that another director, Yoshino Ryohei, for Eternally Younger Than Doji. It's another my favorite work. And also, once again, the author, Tsumura Kikuko, who was a children literature guest last year. This is one of the first opportunity to have both author, original author of the novel, and the director together to talk about same work. So if you haven't booked that your place, please do so. You can scan for booking by iPhone now. And then lastly, of course, if you want to hear from us, Japan Foundation, about future event, please join us for e-bulletin by clicking our website, www.jpf.org.uk. That's all from me. Thank you so much. And then have a wonderful afternoon. UK is now enjoying fantastic weather. And I'm sure some of you want to pop out and then, chill out with a rare opportunity to have a sunshine. So thank you so much. Have a nice afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.